Hi, Dr. Helen. My name is Nicolette.
Meet you, Nicolette. Thank you for inviting me today.
My pleasure. I'm the creator for the podcast titled You're Worthless. Read that again. Juxtaposition of your very soul. First off, thank you very much for saying yes to be interviewed today. And I think after reading your profile, I feel this strong pull towards you that I need to get you onto my show. So
Oh,
thank you
that's
very much. So as a ritual, before I start my episode, I would read a bit of introduction about my guests to our
okay.
listeners, and then we can get down to business. Hi, everyone. We have Dr. Helen Ofosu here. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. She has helped individuals and organizations become more resilient for more than 20 years. So in 2012, she left the safety and security of a job in the Canadian federal government to launch her own coaching and consulting practice. And it has now reached the 10-year mark in 2022. She is one of the five founding officers of a new section of the Canadian Psychological Association focused on Black psychology, which aims to improve the representation of Black faculty, graduate students, and psychologists in Canada. She is also an adjunct professor of psychology at Carleton University in Ottawa, where she delivers occasional guest lectures and enjoy mentoring aspiring psychologists. So her book, How to Be Resilient in Your Career, Facing Up to Barriers at Work, was published on 23rd February 2023. So what an honor to have you here, Dr. Helen.
I'm happy to be here. Looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you so much. So before we dive right into some of the questions I have and some of the questions that you have actually proposed in your profile, can you share with us what was it like growing up as Dr. Helen?
I was not Dr. Helen.
Okay, yeah. Obviously before that. That's right.
I grew up in a suburb of Toronto. I was born in Toronto, but we moved to the suburbs when I was quite young. And you know what? It was a friendly community, but in retrospect, it was complicated because my family was one of the few Black families in our community. So there might have been maximum two or three other Black families. So I was usually the only Black girl or the Black kid in classes through elementary school, through high school. But thank goodness, because we had been in the same community for a long time, we did have friends and we were pretty well supported, but still always a little different.
Hmm. Right. I'm Asian. I'm from Kuala Lumpur. I think I did not introduce that part of me. So um I see this a lot. I've never been to Canada and the US yet, but I will be making my trip soon. Fingers crossed. And
I think for
you
us,
mentioned
I think
yes.
for us, we're a little bit lucky, especially by the time we were in high school. My parents were both professors at McMaster University. And especially in the sciences back then, those fields tended to draw a lot of people from different countries just because they were the best and the brightest. So when we were in high school, we lived on a street that had a surprising amount of diversity. There weren't Black
Mhm.
families, and it still didn't change the ratio of who we were in classes with, but at least we saw some diversity. So we didn't we didn't have the overt exclusion that often happens. I think we were protected to some extent because of who our parents were, but it's still tough when you're the only.
Yeah, yeah. Right. So Dr. Helen, you describe yourself as a career psychologist. I started working I entered the workforce when I was 19 and been around for about 12, 13 years, 15 years, and happy to report that I will be moving out of that soon and starting my own thing. And but still, career is something very close to me. It's just that I don't know, the corporate rat race, it's getting to me at this point. So I'd like to get a bit of your insight. Like, okay, what is career psychology?
Well, it's basically a term that I pretty much made up. The truth is that, when people are looking for career support, if they are not executives, they're probably going to look for a career coach. Nobody's heard of a career psychologist, right? And if they're a little bit more established and they're an aspiring executive or they are an executive, they may look for an executive coach. And those really are the two coaching services that I provide. But very intentionally, when I started, I chose to lean very heavily on my background in industrial and organizational psychology. So that's work and business psychology, and that's the real foundation that I use. So I call myself a career psychologist because that feels like what I am. Right? I'm using that kind of background to provide support that's work related. So, that makes me very different from most of the career coaches out there, makes me very different from most of the executive coaches out there, because my foundation's very different, right? You can't come through an undergrad, a master's, and a PhD in psychology and not think like a psychologist. So kind of why I call myself a career psychologist, so that if people don't want to have anything to do with anyone who's got a background in psychology and they'd rather have a more traditional approach to their coaching, then they can look
Mm.
elsewhere. They like what I can bring to it, then we can talk.
Hey,
Yeah.
per your introduction, you've been in the industry for over 20 years. Like, what was the was there a pivotal moment that made you switch, or what made you want to just like set up my own thing
Well, the
and
fact
leap?
I've always been probably 30% entrepreneur, 30% psychologist, 30%
I can relate.
just embracing that. And I think really, early in my career, I had really good opportunities when I was in the public service as a psychologist and in HR adjacent roles. But honestly, because I'm part creative and part entrepreneur, it wasn't the best fit. I mean, it was
Mm.
okay. After it kind of became clear that I kind of had a different approach to things, I preferred a broader perspective, preferred the opportunity to have more versatility. And if you're in a specific role, sometimes those boxes are just too
Too
small,
square.
too, too square and too small. And
Yeah.
also, I was a little unlucky in the sense that even though people had, I'm sure everyone's doing their very best, but I didn't always have a good alignment with the way certain things were structured. I didn't always have the best alignment with certain styles of leadership. And so
Totally. Yes. Yes.
some things emerged that gave me a chance to try my own gig. And thank goodness, even though it was rough at the beginning, it's worked out well. So at this point, I can't see undoing everything I've done to go and get a
And
job.
going back? No?
No, people would be saying, "Who told you to do that? Who told you to write that? Your job is supposed to be that." Yeah,
Oh,
so
I can relate that because I am also a person, I think, I had the idea of just going, I guess it was conditioned since I was a young kid that you have to be good in school and you have to get a good job so you can earn good money. And I tried to ride the wave until 30, and when I felt that burnout, and I'm like, no, this is not for me. And right now I've how do I say this? I also I would say creative as well, but I was in accounting, and then
Okay.
I moved. Yeah, yes. I mean that's the easiest for me to get jobs because everybody needs accountant. And then I dip my toes in every area that an accountant can go. So I went into consulting, I went into debt restructuring, I went into audit, I went into the accounts itself, and recently shared service center. And mm, and I had my fair share of trauma. Sorry for sharing. I just felt like I felt compelled to share. Just recently I had my own personal trauma, so that led me to some different spiritual journey. Coming out on the other side, I felt like I wanted to do therapy. So right now, I am on the way and almost graduating from therapy. So, and when I told you I'm leaving my job, I would like to set up my own practice. So I can perhaps get some, nuggets of advice from you as you have done this, obviously, um,
Well, with your
14 years
background
ago.
thing, so many people have so many worries around numbers and around their money. So you might have a terrific impact on entrepreneurs, right? Because a lot of entrepreneurs, especially,
Oh,
they are tough.
oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that
yeah,
would, if I were you, that would be my niche. Because especially, even though there are a lot of therapists who are self-employed,
yeah.
many therapists, there it's a different version of entrepreneurship when say 80%, 90% of the fees that you charge are covered by insurance, right?
Mm.
It's I'm not saying it's easy per se, but it's a little easier when people know that they are not paying everything out of pocket for your services. For regular therapists, right? So you because you understand the realities probably of many aspects of accounting and you've dealt with so many business owners and all that kind of stuff, you might have more empathy for what people are going through when they're creating a business and trying to figure out, what they need to be doing, what they need to not do, what they need to prioritize. So not
You're giving
just
that consulting service, right? In terms of the financials or business planning for entrepreneurs.
yeah,
You just
but
unlocked
I
something though.
wish more too, right? Because I remember some years ago I came across this amazing article in Inc. magazine, and I remember the cover picture of the article was somebody almost drowning in the ocean, huge waves crashing around them. And this is an entrepreneur who's like literally holding on for dear life because they are kind of drowning and they're full of anxiety and worry and stress. And so many entrepreneurs don't have very much money, so they can't afford therapy, but they need support. So, and then quiet, I think, I think there's a lot of neurodiversity within entrepreneurship. A lot of people who have dyslexia, who have ADD, and like there's a lot happening. So I bet that'd be a great niche.
It's a good one, so I can couple it with therapy as well.
Well,
This is
I don't know.
why
I
I'm.
mean, it may be complicated. There's probably rules about dual relationships, so I'm not sure if
Mm,
you can.
mm, 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 mm. Yeah, I can practice as a therapist and I can practice as a financial advisor or something like that.
Yeah, and
Business
you probably
advisor.
get the same service for both people. But if you
Mm.
have awareness about certain things, it'll make you a more valuable therapist.
Wow, Dr. Helen, thank you.
You're
And this is
welcome.
why I love speaking. And part of why I started podcasting is because I just want to get as many ideas as I can from people, and I love talking. And it's a form of therapy to me as well, and a coaching from from great people like you.
Well, now that you've mentioned it, there's another reason why I use the title career psychologist.
Mhm.
Very intentional when I started. I had lots of relevant experience, but I intentionally did not pursue a coaching designation.
Okay.
I wanted to hold on to my uniqueness. 99% of the coaches out there do not have a PhD in psychology. And depending on the coaching designation, some of them might be a weekend, some of them might be a year, but none of them are equivalent to what I have. So I didn't want to
Yeah.
go myself more like the majority, right? I needed to retain my special status. If anything, I mean, not
And
to be
I'm
arrogant, but if
yeah.
anything, was supposed to be a professor with my PhD in psychology. So I do lots of training and continuing education, and I just I didn't want to
Lose
become
that.
any. Yeah, I wanted to retain my uniqueness.
Mm, yes, I'm still a certified accountant, so I should do something about it. Hold on to the and then just
Yeah,
add that therapy as
yeah.
supplementary. Yeah. Wow, I got to do some thinking. Thank you, Dr. Helen.
You're welcome. It takes a lot of effort to hold on to a designation like an accountant. So I would hold on to it for a while, and only when you're quite sure you'll never use it, give it
Yeah.
up. But the way to keep it, I would keep it
Yeah.
right on the bottom of every degree. It doesn't say something like you can use the rights and privileges associated with.
Yeah, I can use my ACCA designation. So,
There you go.
oh, thank God. I was so ready to like kick it to the curb this year when I paid for the fees. I'm like, because this year would be the last year my company would be supporting it. So after this, it'd be mine on my own expense. I'm like, should I keep it? It's a, it's a sign.
A business expense, right? And when you become a business owner
Yeah,
as a therapist or whatever, then you write it off against your taxes.
that's right. So I got to think of as a business owner now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, Dr. Helen, what first drew you to specialize in organizational psychology?
I remember when I was doing my undergrad in psychology, I was thinking about what was I going to do next? I mean, I don't know, like in Kuala Lumpur in terms of what psychology grads do, but certainly in North America, it's almost like a common joke that there are so many people with an undergraduate degree in psychology, and what are you going to do with it? So I knew I had to do something, right? I didn't think I would have a lucrative career with a BSc in psychology. So I was contemplating doing an MBA or continuing in psychology, specializing in organizational psychology. Because this IO psychology that I've done, it's as close as you can get to business. And I took a gap year because I knew that I had to take algebra, which I hadn't taken in undergrad. I took calculus because it was required, but not algebra. And I needed algebra to get into the MBA program. And I knew I would probably need to take the GMAT and two GREs. So, with a thesis in my fourth year, I just couldn't do all those other things. There was no space. So I took a gap year, took algebra, took those exams. And as I was getting ready to do the applications, I thought, you know what? If I can get into psychology, I'd rather be one of you instead of one of many, right? Because MBAs are more, or there are more of them.
Yeah, it's more common, right?
Yeah. So that's what I did. That's how it happened.
Standing
Took a
out.
lot to make use of the business part, but I'm
Yeah. So your qualifications are BSc in psychology, and your master would be in
psychology,
psychology and PhD in psychology.
correct?
Through and through psychology. Wow.
No, but undergrad was, I kind of mixed it up. I mean, it's not a traditional undergrad in psychology. It's very much a STEM degree. It was a BSc. Yeah. And even industrial and organizational psychology, it's classified as a STEM discipline, even though I feel
Oh.
like I'm creative at heart. That's why some of my blog topics are kind of out there, right? I've written about workplace jealousy,
Oh.
written about the upsides of workplace rivalry, different versions of leadership, like courageous leadership, crucible leadership. My book is definitely different in terms of an approach to career stuff. So I get to exercise some of my creativity.
Yes, and that brings me to my next question. You wrote the book. Let me repeat that. How to be resilient in your career, facing up to barriers at work.
Mhm.
And who will benefit most from reading this book?
Well, to be honest, I wrote it for three types of people. The
Okay.
first person is somebody who is working somewhere or has a career and they either want to avoid certain common problems or they want to navigate their way through certain problems. So that's the first audience. Because some of these problems create turmoil and stress and anxiety, often when I'm supporting people through these challenges, I'll introduce them to good therapists or clinical psychologists who may help them get over um, organizational betrayal, organizational grief, trauma, those kinds of things. And a lot of therapists and clinical psychologists have worked one on one in their practice and don't have a lot of experience in these larger organizational contexts. So this book is actually also helpful for those therapists. And thank goodness a lot of them are recommending my book.
Yeah,
And then
I
then the final group is leaders who want to figure out how to improve their organizational climate. You see, I'm very lucky over these literally over the 20 years that I've been doing this type of work in different climates or in different contexts. I've been hearing things unfiltered that a lot of leaders never ever hear, right? Because depending on what your position is in an organization, unless you're asking people to be really straight with you, you might hear very sanitized, very filtered things.
democratic type of answers, responses. Yeah.
Very diplomatic,
Yeah,
very
yeah, yeah. Very
like
diplomatic, correct, yes.
so leaders who want to understand, well, why are people leaving my organization all the time? Or why do I have certain problems in my organization? Or why is there an issue where people who are racialized or differently abled or members of the LGBTQ community or indigenous, why do these people not feel comfortable in my organization? Well, this book gives them insights about how other people may be experiencing the workplace.
Wow.
Yeah.
I I go- I
Wow.
googled it a bit and I read some of the reviews. So I'm like, oh, this is a good book.
Yeah.
Is it
Super.
yeah. Is it available on Audible?
It is available on Audible.
Okay. Okay. Yes. Yes. I have to put that into my iPad.
You know what? It's written very plain language. My feeling is that when people are going through these hard things, they don't need to be reading a book that's very complicated,
Yes.
right? So it's very simple, straightforward, and people have told me that when they listen to it on Audible, it feels like we're just talking, like we're just having a conversation. It's very relatable.
Brilliant. Let me get my hands on that. Okay. Dr. Helen, in your opinion, what is the relationship between work and mental health?
As I do so much executive coaching, I have a very concrete example. So typically, when I'm doing executive coaching, I try to have people do a leadership assessment because this is a way to get an objective idea not only about how they are coming across, but also to see where things are likely to kind of unravel for them when they are stressed out, when they are exhausted, when they're distracted, when they're under pressure. And being under pressure, being distracted, stressed out, all these things are very much how it feels when you are having some challenges with your mental health,
Mm.
right? So it's a very objective way of pointing out that even if you can tolerate certain hard feelings that come along with difficult experiences or the fallout of certain experiences, it's going to have an impact on your performance. So
Yeah.
for me, it's a big part of the link is that our mental health and wellness absolutely has an impact on how we interact with other people and how we perform.
And ultimately, it will show in productivity and bottom line
Exactly.
of the companies.
That's
Hmm.
it. So that's a big piece. But now I'm also learning, or I guess I have learned, that a lot of these things that are happening to people at work, whether it's microaggressions, being passed over for promotions, being excluded, all of these small things that are happening. I mean, they're small, but they feel big and they feel bad. Apparently, according to neurobiology, all of these small incidents, if you have enough of them, end up combining to have this exact same impact as a classic big T trauma. So, a big car accident, a serious illness or injury, combat, all of those big T traumas, well, they get some empathy for that. They get some support for that. But quite often, people are just expected to live with it when they're
Yeah,
dealing
and
with questions and other
just
things.
strap up and move on, and because it kind of give a notion of you're my employee, I'm obligated to provide some level of care to you, in terms of, I don't know, physical care, in terms of insurance, or some days off for you to. I mean, I see companies they have started, or they have this employee resource group, employee assistance program, but in my organization, itself, I don't know what's the statistics about people going into EAP programs, even like friends, colleagues that come to me and say, naturally, I don't know why, naturally they just come to me because I guess I'm a good listener, and they just come to me and start talking about their problems, and I'm like, I'm not a qualified therapist yet, but do you want to perhaps check out our EAP? Hmm, let me see. It's always that I don't know. It's within my radius. I don't know if, and it's in Asia, so I don't know how are people perceiving that in Nora or EMEA, right? Um,
Well, from what I've seen in North America, it depends on who you are, whether you're going to go to the EAP, right? So if you are somebody who's not part of the majority, so if you are a Black person, racialized person, somebody who's part of a pride community, somebody with a disability, if the perception is that the people at the EAP don't have lived experience that's like yours, right?
because they can
Because,
never, yeah, they can never resonate.
well, that's it. So that's a big barrier from what I can see in
It's a
North America.
it's a full circle, don't you think, Dr. Helen? We need to educate those people in EAP and make sure that they actually have lived experiences that the people that are serviced.
Well, it's bigger than the EAP because, of course, the EAP can only hire who exists. But in psychology, we have a very, very big problem with a lack of representation. I think the representation is better in social work and in psychotherapy and counseling. So there's some representation, but it's still not great,
Hmm,
right?
giving
So
me
if
a good thought.
you don't
Yeah.
have professors who are representative, then the people who are providing the education are going to get a very narrow education, right? So you need to have more people in graduate school who are representative. You need to have more inclusive faculties. And that's the only way you can create enough representation to provide the services.
You, wow. Yes. and it's actually super prevalent in my current where I am. And yeah, although, okay, I not to, no want to mention, but you just given me some food for thought. Seriously, like
But I'm curious though. I mean, in Asia, I'm hoping that the EAP providers are mostly Asian. So at least the lived experience piece is okay.
is more it's closer. I to be honest, I I've never called one myself.
Okay.
However, they should be Asian. Yes, yes, you're right. They should be Asian. And I think the way they structure it, it's in different region, but the people stationed in EAP would be from a certain region in
Okay.
Asia. Yeah. So for example, people in China would have a totally different experience to a multi cultural country like Malaysia. So it's different, and it's felt all the way because yeah, if this will be published and my colleagues follow my podcast, well, at the time this is published there will be my ex-colleagues. So you see, this is the problem, this is the issue. They know very well that the leadership style from let's say that country, that you know and it's different from how things are done in Malaysia, and that's called, you can see it, attrition rate is, yeah. And no, so you see, this is just Asian with Asians and how much more so, with the country that side, region that side. So it,
And I have a question for you. So within the Canadian Psychological Association, we have a new section focused on Asian psychology.
Mhm.
Because Asians are also underrepresented within the field of psychology. And within the Black community and within the Canadian Asian community, people are less likely to reach out for mental health support. There's kind of a stigma against
It's a
it.
taboo because
So
yes, yes.
you're noticing the same thing. Okay.
Yes, because it's the way we were brought up. I can speak because lived experiences, not just maybe not mine, but then people around me. It's almost shameful if you cannot handle your own
Okay.
thoughts, your own mind, and that should be the number one thing that you should be able to cope before you carry yourself into the world. And anytime a kid tries to maybe says her feelings or his feelings, it's quickly gets shut down. And to be honest, I had a conversation with my sister as well, 2 days ago, and she said this very thing. I don't even need to look far. It's my own sister growing up, and she had to. It's super tough. Like, I probably were different in a way that I am more outgoing. I purposely put myself out there, but for her, she's more on the sensitive side. So growing up, my dad. So when my dad scolded us, she would cry, but my dad would say, "Wipe that tears away. I don't want to see that." So a lot of the emotions are repressed, and I can see it's very the impact is right now. Like, I'm like this, but she turned out fine, but you can tell there's blockage in terms of letting her feelings be known to my parents because of that trauma. I guess she was hurt before, and it's almost the same across all the other kids my age. But fortunately, I know we're getting there, but it's just very micro steps. People are starting to open up now.
I like to think about mental health and wellness the same way I think about other things. I go to the doctor,
Mm.
I go to the dentist,
Yes,
uh,
yes. Should be the
like
way.
I don't I know how to brush my teeth, but I still go. I may not
Yes,
want to go, but
yeah,
I go for maintenance, right?
yes.
So I think we can just treat our mental health as if we're going for another version
Like a
of
maintenance thing, like how we maintain our cars and for servicing,
yeah,
like going to the gym, strengthening your,
exactly.
here, yeah, in here. Mm. Well, at least I hope this episode will be able to, have that small little ripple effect in my community at least. Because to be honest, I found a lot of people are feeling all this imposter syndrome, self-worthiness, and that is the essence of my podcast. And they just don't want to talk about it. Or maybe they do, but they talk to their friends who are also in the same circle. So it's just like that. The Lulu bestie giving therapies to another the Lulu friend. So I was like, the, yeah, but yeah, I hope. Um,
This
yes,
apply I don't know if this applies within Asia, but certainly in North America, I've noticed that imposter syndrome plays out differently for people who are members of underrepresented groups.
really, how so?
I think so. So I think the gist of it is that when you are treated as if you don't belong because you are overlooked or maybe tokenized, and somebody says, oh, you're only here because you are a member of such and such a group and there was a quota,
Mm.
or, like when those kinds of things are often happening, then you're feeling like you're an imposter. You're being
Ah,
right.
it's
So
coming from a different angle.
it's coming from the
Oh, the external factor instead of your inner conflict, whether you can do that job well or not, whether you're well
exactly,
deserving of that promotion.
exactly.
Mm,
So I think
wow.
it's yeah.
How do we solve that, Dr. Helen? What can we
Well,
do?
part of it I think is we're getting a bit of a reality check, realizing that just because other people want to label you as something doesn't mean that the label fits.
Damn, I feel I want to change the world.
I bet you will.
One step at a time. Thank you for that, Dr. Helen. Okay, so we often hear about PTSD in the context of combat and first responders. So, yeah, why do you talk about workplace trauma?
I talk about workplace trauma because easily 30%, 40% of my clients have experienced mistreatment. So not just a one episode of mistreatment, but ongoing mistreatment at work, whether it's bullying, workplace harassment, or being mistreated because they're a Black person, a racialized person, differently abled. And, I've come to learn that from neurobiology, whenever you're experiencing these, they call them small t traumas, it has a way of um, creating unpredictability and overactivity and overreactivity excuse me, in our nervous systems.
Like
And
you're,
so, and if you add
yeah,
enough of these together, it adds up to the same impact as a big T trauma. And so, since so many people don't really think of it that way, they don't know why they feel terrible. But if they
yeah.
feel terrible because their organization has betrayed them, or because
Mm,
work related grief because they've taken on certain positions with certain expectations, but been mistreated and
not given
you
the
know,
same,
that's it.
I don't know, save resources, for example, to excel in his or her role position.
Well, that's it. And if you know that you're capable, but you're not able to exercise your abilities or you're not able to reach your real potential, all of these things it's awful.
Yeah.
So I myself can't treat trauma. I'm not a clinical psychologist, but at least I understand some of these hidden barriers and obstacles that people are dealing with. And because I'm connected to so many therapists, counselors, social workers, and psychologists, it's pretty easy for me to make introductions when I think somebody could use that kind of extra support. Just the same way world-class athletes have a team around them, right? They have a coach,
Yeah, exactly.
they have a physical therapist to bring.
Nutritionist.
Yes.
Yeah, to be able to be world class, you've got to have the right team.
So that's
Damn,
why I think
I thought I
about
was not deserving of the role. No, I wasn't given the right resources and sufficient resources of that. I know I'm good. They're gonna hear it after I leave the company. It's fine.
what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, yes. And then you said here, um, leaders. It's important for leaders to become trauma informed. Can you please elaborate on this?
Well, I think the most simple way I can describe it is that when we appreciate that everybody wants to be able to come to work and contribute and not need to focus on self-protection, right? If you're in a bad work
Oh
environment,
yes.
environment,
Oh my god.
how bad it is, you might have to dedicate 20%, 30%, 40% of your intellectual and emotional energy just into surviving, just protecting
Not
yourself from.
even into thriving. You can't even thrive if you have your energy being diverted into these things to protect yourself, to protect your sanity. Oh
So,
gosh.
as an
Terrible.
accountant, you can appreciate that you're paying somebody 100% of their income. But
Yeah.
depending on how bad your work environment is, are you losing 10% as leakage,
Mm,
20% leakage,
yeah.
30%, right?
Yeah.
So understanding that all of this mistreatment is creating small traumas for people who are being mistreated and
And
figuring
ultimately, yeah,
stop,
my bottom line suffers. Yeah.
right? So
Very,
it's definitely
very
a
true.
moral imperative, but it's a practical imperative as well.
Mm, mm, mm.
So understanding that all of these problems are creating traumas, not only for the people who experience it, but for anybody who's got kind of a heart and they are watching other people being mistreated,
Being
they're
treated like this. Yeah.
trauma, right? Nobody
Yeah.
wants to watch somebody being mistreated and crying in the bathroom or crying in their car before they get into the office or when they leave, right? So that's a lot of trauma.
Oh, wow. Wow. Another level
Hiding
lock
in plain
for me.
sight, hi-
Yes, yes. Well, I've got a lot to think about. But if I want to make a change, I'll start with myself.
that's it.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Dr. Helen, I'm gonna pivot to a self-worth question because my my podcast is about that. And then I my question to you is, how would you define self-worth and why is it crucial for personal growth and happiness? Or if you have a
Oh,
different definition.
tough question. But I guess at its foundation, and of course, I'm coming from a psychology perspective and kind of thinking about some of the people I'm connected to. So I think we have to all remember that we're all inherently valuable. We're all equally valuable, just as humans. And that even though, because of historical things, some people are treated as less than human, right? We look at certain global conflicts and the way certain people are described, they're treated as if they're animals. They're treated like they're not.
Mm,
We have to remember that we're all worthy. And just because somebody else doesn't see how much you're worth doesn't mean you're not worth what you know you're worth. So we need to find ways to remind ourselves, spend time with people who see what we're worth and expect what we should deserve, right? Especially for myself and for other people who have unique insights and qualities. Instead of accepting that other people want to try to diminish you, I like to say, you know what? No, no, no. We deserve a premium when we are unique. We shouldn't be discounted. So
that
keeping
VIP treatment.
exactly keeping some of these things in mind helps you to, recalibrate and expect what you deserve, not and just not settle for
Not
mistreatment,
settle. Yeah.
not settle for being discounted, being diminished.
Yeah, that brought me to I had a thought just now when you were saying it. So what are these people like if they are not represented at all and they feel like they're alone and they don't know where to turn to, what do they do? Like what's the first step?
Well, it's really tough if you really and truly are the only one in a whole organization.
Yeah.
The case, well, you need to find community support, family support, so you don't feel like you're isolated.
Mm,
And maybe longer term, if you can find an organization where there is more diversity, then over time, if you can get yourself into that kind of an organization, you're going to feel better, right?
yeah.
Because it's tough to be the only one and mistreated. If you're the only one and you're celebrated and you're welcome, that's different. It's still hard, but it's not as bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Finding your tribe. So Dr. Helen, what is your heart's greatest wish?
Oh, I have so many wishes. Oh my goodness.
You can list
Lord,
top
it's
three.
personal or global wishes.
Anything. You can have each.
Okay.
One for
Well,
each.
probably, not to be selfish about it, but I like to feel good, right? So I'd love to have ongoing good health and good energy and financial resources so that I have the energy and the capacity to do things that matter. That's a big one. But really, if everybody has that, oh my goodness, there'll be so much possibility, right?
Yeah.
If people are generally speaking kind of rich and happy in whatever way that they need to be, then working with that abundance, there's just less room for doing things that are petty and destructive.
Thank you. Do you have a
I'm,
mantra that sorry?
what's
Oh
your
yeah, the global.
for you? What's your greatest
Oh,
wish?
this is my first guest asked me. Oh wow. I would want to leave an impact to the world, but I'll start with one person at a time when I leave them, when I leave this world. If I in any way make them feel heard or seen or appreciated, I think I have done a good job as a human being to them.
I'll say ditto.
And sometimes I don't know, like before, sorry, I know 7 minutes, Dr. Helen, I hope I'm not keep I hope you yeah. I'll make this quick. Two more questions for you. But I just want to share. Because during my last this one like last job, I felt like I wasn't they said that I wasn't aggressive enough. And because of my um, because I'm empathic in the sense that I don't have that, oh, you got to do this, you got to do this. And the way I manage my team is different. I give them a lot of empowerment. I give them leeway. So that kind of leadership is not really welcome before. So I thought that I didn't think I know that kindness isn't weakness; it's actually strength. So I kind of brought that with me now, and I kind of make that my identity because everybody is fighting their own battles we don't know about. So that is something that yeah, I try to live by.
Sure. Is there a question for me? Because I agree with what you
No,
said.
no, yeah. I was sharing my story. Okay, so two more questions. What keeps you up at night, if there's any? Is there anything?
Well, sometimes I'm hired to do very hard things. And so sometimes, even when I'm supposed to be sleeping, I might be dreaming about it or thinking
Can you give
about
an
it.
example of what are those hard things? Is it like firing people?
Oh no, hard. So, for instance, actually, I don't want to say.
Okay, confidentiality. Okay, I understand.
Well,
Okay,
yeah, I'll leave it there. There's just hard things, and
I
I
get it. I get it. Okay, so last question for you, Dr. Helen. If you could create a quote right now for you to leave to the audience listening and the world as your legacy, what would it be?
oh man, I don't know. There's so many. Just in February alone, I had one quote for every single day of the month. For like in Canada and in the United States, February is Black History Month, and I had a
Oh, yes, 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 yes.
see if I can put my hands on one of them because I mean I've got so many, and they're so. In fact, there were some quotes that led to me connecting with people who I had never met before. What's it? One quote.
Yeah, one quote.
One quote. One quote. Oh.
It could be something that stuck with you.
Well, there's one. Yeah, here's one. Okay. And it's from somebody who's a little bit of an unusual person to quote. His name is Tupac Shakur,
Whoa.
artist who died in the 1990s.
Yeah.
And, hip hop artists, they often say things that other people think of, and they're often poets in a sense. So there's this one quote: "You wouldn't ask why a rose that grew from the concrete had damaged petals. On the contrary, we would all celebrate its tenacity. We would all love its will to reach the sun. Well, we are the roses, and this is the concrete, and these are my damaged petals. Don't ask me why, thank God, and ask me how." 'Cause I think there are a lot of people who have faced all kinds of challenges that maybe other people don't see. So, in a way, they feel like a rose that has grown through concrete. They're damaged, but they're still doing it.
You're still there.
They're
Yeah.
still there.
What a way to close our interview. Thank you so much, Dr. Helen.
It's very interesting.
It's fun talking to you too. I feel like, yeah, we're definitely conversing. And you said your book is going to be like this. So it's like hearing you talk to me then. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Helen. I will be cutting when this episode airs, so I will be snipping some of the clips and I will be tagging you. So perhaps you could share that in your IG.
Absolutely.
And also, Dr. Helen, if anybody listening here, they would want to reach out to you. How can they do that?
Well, the easiest place is probably from my book website,
Okay,
theresilientcareer.com, and all the links to my socials are there.
perfect.
Very
Okay,
easy. You
all
can put
right.
that in your notes.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Helen. I wish you a good day and
Thank
a
you.
good life.
Thank you.
I will, I feel that our paths will cross again. If ever I visit Canada, I will let you know.
Before that, I'm going to be looking for you on IG and elsewhere so we can keep in touch.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you,
Okay.
Dr. Helen. You have a good day. Bye bye.
And bye.
Bye bye.